Hello, my spooky fan. Uh, I'll be reading chapter 2. It's Ghost of Graylock, and I'll be adding it to the Ghost of Graylock playlist. So, here it goes. Since I got like 15 views for the prologue, chapter 1. Sorry if you hear the Walking Dead cast from Easter moments. The Baptist boys leaned their bikes against the side of the porch. Since Bree didn't have a bike of her own and was scared to ride on any of the handlebars, they'd all have to walk. Neil was annoyed, but at least Bree had given up her goal of keeping him from going to Greylock. Taking a right at the end of the driveway, the small group hiked along the side of the road. The summer sunlight filtered between the trees, making stripes of shadows at the fields. Caseta song rose and fell in nearly deafening waves. The beauty of the afternoon clashed with the group's intention, a fact that was not lost on Neil, who grew increasingly excited with every step. He could almost feel the presence of the building and the woods waiting for him. How much further, he asked. There's a turnoff just ahead, said Eric. I can't believe how close your aunts live to this place. Can't believe Neil hadn't heard of Greylock until told him about it last night. Me neither, said Bree, skipping forward so she can walk beside Eric. I mean, I've known about it for years. After a moment of uncomfortable silence, she said, how do y'all met? Well, Wesley's my little brother. We go way back. Yeah, I got that. But where did you find Neil and Wesley? The library, of course. A couple of days before, when Neil and Bree had arrived at their aunt's house, the first thing they did together was visit the pie shop. After eating... Okay, you know what? I can't believe I'm doing this. Sorry about that. After eating an amazing gooey piece of souffle pie at the shop's cozy cafe, Neil thanked Claire and Anne and asked if he could stroll down Tully Avenue, the main road through Houston. He hadn't been able to get his mother's tear-stained face out of his head. I just need some time alone, honey, she informed him only a week earlier. Her sister Claire, had offered to take Neil and Bree for the summer. Houston was several hours north of their home in New Jersey. Neil's uncle Felix lived closer in a studio apartment in Jersey City, but he also works late in New York City. They would have been alone all day and most evenings, and at night they had to be cramped into a small fold-out couch. Yeah, that would have been crazy. So instead, Neil had escaped up to the country with his sister, only to find unlimited time to think about all the horrible things his memory insists he remembers. Neil now understood you cannot escape from yourself. He also understood that his brain wasn't so different from his mother. The first day in Houston, Neil walked up and down Tully Avenue several times, kicking stones out of his way, plucking leaves off the shrub, and in front of a shabby-looking cottage, humming nonsense songs to himself. Neil had passed the library twice before he noticed the boy sitting on top of the steps, staring intensely off into the distance. Neil turned towards the boy was gazing, but he could see was a dip in the road. A wooded hillside, the leaves far trees blowing in the breeze. Do you see him? The boy asked from the top of the stairs. After a few seconds, Neil realized the boy was talking to him. See who? The Green Man, said the boy with a smile. He wore a white t-shirt with what looked like a neon purple popsicle stain dribbled down the front. His frizzy black hair laid half curled into a mop on his head. Neil looked across the street, trying to find someone who might fit the description of Green Man, but there were only trees, hills, sky, clouds. Don't tell me you never heard of Green Man, said the boy, waving for Neil to come up in the stairs. You can probably see him better from here. Neil followed, sitting next to him at the top step. Green Men are from Irish folklore. They're a kind of forest spirits. Forest spirits? Is that like a ghost? Not really, said the boy. More like an entity. An entity. Neil found himself amazed and disturbed at the same time. The boy sounded a little crazy. Want me to teach you to see him? Okay, Neil said, remembering Alexei and Mark, trying to stay open-minded. It's mostly a mental thing, the boy said. First, you've got to relax, look off at the hillside, let your vision go fuzzy. Across the small valley was a blur of green. Trees, more trees. Now, the boy continued, let the lights in the dark of the leaves leap out. Leap out? Just try. Just a few seconds later, something strange occurred. Neil didn't know how it happened, but just the act of staring and concentration put him in a different kind of place. He could feel the cold stones beneath him, the breeze trickling his face, but he felt elsewhere. The shadow and light will blur. Look closer, fall into it. He's right there, in that blur. Look, a face. The boy was right. Where the shadows retreated into the mass of the leaves on the hill, suddenly Neil noticed a pair of eyes blinking, a mouth opening and closing, as if reciting some silent song as the wind blew through the trees. Neil gasped, and then the face was gone. He turned to the boy. Was that thing real? The Green Man? The boy laughed. You saw him, didn't you? He quieted and then peered off into the distance again. You'd be surprised how easily you can find them. Stand there at anything for a while, it will eventually stare back. Neil chuckled, pleased to meet someone who might be as weird as him. He'd definitely seen the face in the trees. If this boy saw it too, then they're in it together, and neither of them were nuts.
Where's Mingus? My son Mingus is here. He's right
The boy smiled to himself as if the Green Man across the way had suddenly winked at him. I'm Wesley, by the way. Neil knew right then that they'd be friends. By the time Neil had made it back to the pie shop, he found himself looking around at pieces of town, sidewalk stains, patterns in the brickwork, shadow falling across the concrete, trying to find life inside all of it. He couldn't help but also think of his parents. How a useful skill such as Wesley might have given him a clue to the secrets they had kept for so long. Secrets to which he still had no satisfying answer. Here we are, said Eric, pausing near a gravel road that led into a dense growth of pines. Next to the inconspicuous intersection, hidden by a wall of weeds and low-hanging branches, a small wooden sign stood atop a thick post. Graylock Hall State Hospital. Notice how it says nothing about crazy people, said Eric with a smirk. Totally bland. Would you like to say... What would you like to say? Weasley asked. Welcome to the loony bin? Where is it? Neil asked. Way back through the trees, said Eric. You have to cross a bridge at the end of the long driveway. The main building is on an island in Graylock Lake. The woods are state property. There's not much else out here. As the group stood at the edge of the path, a gust of wind released needles from high pine trees, spots swaying over their heads. The needles scattered at their feet. The dark scent of sticky sap hang in there. You sure you want to do this? Is it dangerous? Bree asked. Probably, Eric answered with a slight shrug. Seriously. Bree sighed and hugged her ribs as if protecting herself from the chill that didn't exist, but eventually she took the first step into the gravel road. They all walked in silence for a while. A couple of driveways turned off the thin stretch through the dense trees. Neil could see the building in the distance. Old houses, he wondered, if anyone still lived in them. You don't really believe the hospital has ghosts in it, Bree said eventually. Do you? She spoke directly to Eric. It was obvious to her how Neil and Wesley felt. It's hard not to believe when so many people have claimed to seen her, said Eric. See who? Bree whispered. The nurse. Bree would have laughed. Neil would have laughed if Wesley hadn't given him the rundown the day before. Now he listened as Eric recounted it for his sister. Though hearing it for a second time, the story again gave him chills. And we're going here why? Said Bree, stopping at the middle of the gravel path as Eric finished the tale. There's so much to see, said Eric. After Graylock was closed 15 years ago, the patients were either moved to another institution or released. It happened in a hurry. They even left behind charts, specimens, medical records. Yeah, it was like back then, how people would literally like pick up and leave when it comes to abandoned hospitals, even institutions like the asylum, which people like to call the loony bin, insane asylums, stuff like that. It's just an institute where people who go to get treatment. They would have left medical records, charts, x-rays, even leave behind hazardous material, but those would have been taken out along with like most of the stuff. They even left behind equipment. It's just crazy to know that. Weasley skipped forward. Tell them about the padded cells. Oh yeah, there are padded cells, but like they're probably in the basement somewhere in the institutions. Marked with the gorge marks in the walls, or the bloodstains streaking the hallway floor, or the crayon graffiti drawings that decorated the spiral staircase. Neil could tell that Bree was truly frightened. She locked her knees and shoved her hands deep into her pockets. If they weren't careful, she might take off in the opposite direction. That would be a disaster, especially if she had the ants drive out here to pick him up. He's kidding, said Neil, rolling his eyes. Come on, said Eric. He reached out and took her hand. I might get scared without you. Bree's knees loosened. Something sparked in her eyes, and Neil knew they were in the clear. They walked ahead. Seconds later, Weasley whispered in Neil's ears, but I wasn't kidding. I'll be reading chapter 3 probably tomorrow or the day after. So, yeah.